Welcome back to Natural 2, our D&D and tabletop role-playing podcast. I am Nathan, my co-host is James, and today we are doing something that we have done twice now. So this is the third entry in the scenario challenge, where we try and come up with likely scenarios that would come up in a D&D game, and then try to apply a lot of the advice and I guess the suggestions that we make in a actual scenario, even though these are made up. It's just supposed to try and showcase how you might use some of our advice and actually apply it to a game or a problem. So, I will go ahead and throw my scenario at James first and see what he comes up with, and then we will probably throw it back and forth. And then at the end, we're going to pull a community problem and conquer that together. So, James, picture this. Paint an image in your mind. You've been running a game for a lengthy period of time, and we're probably talking around a year, maybe more. It's a consistent game, running for a while, good group of dudes. You know, that's the backdrop for this event. One of your friends, after a little bit of pestering or poking, eventually persuades you to allow his girlfriend or his wife to join. And, he'll swear up and down that, she's interested, she's dedicated, she's, been on the fringe of this game for long enough that she can hop right in, it won't be a problem. And after she joins, maybe 3, 4, 5 sessions in, you're getting that kind of nagging feeling of not a good fit. Either she is dragging down the, routine that you had established, she's pulling the game in a different direction, there's a more precise problem where she is demanding more attention than is necessary. Whatever that issue is, it is now getting to the point where it's affecting the other players' enjoyment. So now these 3 other parties are probably coming to you in various ways saying, yeah, I kind of miss when it was just the dudes. So, how do you handle that situation?
Is she a new player, or is she
I'm gonna go with
initiated into the hobby?
we'll go with new, because I think that's a more likely scenario in reality.
So I think that this is interesting for me because I've actually been in this general situation twice. I've been in a group where a husband and wife were both part of the game, and my wife has joined a table that I had been a part of before. So I've kind of been on all sides of this in real life, IRL. So I think it's important when you have a new player to give them some room to make let's use the word mistakes, for lack of a better one, to give them room to explore and bump into things and try things out, because you don't want their first experiences to be bad. I think that if we, you know, if we like this hobby, if we want to be good fans of this hobby, good stewards of the hobby, then one of the things that is involved is being good to new players. So I think that I would start there. I would um, take the existing players aside and say, listen, I know it's kind of a drag right now, but she's new. We were all new once. Let's see if we can get through this for a while longer, and maybe it will improve. And keep running sessions with an eye toward what constructive feedback can I give that will help her to mesh and help her to fit in more naturally. That's where I would want to start. Having said that, if it's just not working, then that is the time to go to um, her and her partner, uh, and specifically because they're partners, and he's the person that brought her in. Um, get them both and now have a talk with them and say, look, there's some friction here with our moving parts, and maybe we can talk about whether you've been having fun and have been enjoying it and whatnot. Um, I think that you have to expect at any table. It's a social game. Uh, it's a game all about talking. That is, you know, one of the things you've got to be able to do, other than roll dice and add simple math, is communicate your intentions and understand what other people are saying. So at any table, you've got to be prepared to kind of wade into these situations. Sometimes you don't get to say, you know, leave that ish at home. Like, when we get on the court, it's just about the game. Like that. This is not a game like that.
Mhm.
So, um, that's my. I think that's my take on it, without rambling and repeating myself.
Yeah. I think because this is a topic that comes up all over the place online, or like not even just online, but it gets vocalized a lot online. Of, there's some problem between a friend or a friend and their partner, or it's the dynamic of one friend group trying to mesh with a different friend group and they're not quite, locking together. It all eventually comes down to communication, which we've talked about abundantly, so I'm not going to retread that ground. I think in this specific scenario, the thing that makes it so tricky and perhaps incredibly volatile if handled incorrectly is you don't have a direct hand in that person's love life, but you have a certain amount of responsibility in handling that situation well so it doesn't become a point of friction for them, because I think that's worst case scenario is either you hurt the partner's feelings and the initial person that brought them in is sour, or vice versa, or you turn both of them off from D&D or the group or each other by fumbling this process. I think one of the important things to head off this problem when it is just beginning is when someone talks about bringing someone else into the group. I would be very, very hesitant to just take them at their word and just welcome someone in without some sort of interview or discussion or meet beforehand. I would want to sit down with
Boarding
them.
process.
Yeah, sit down with them alone, not with their partner constantly answering questions for them, or not with their partner in the background kind of egging things on. I would want to have an actual discourse with that person to try and gauge if what I've been told is kind of what's accurate. And as far as if that all works out and then they get joined and then we eventually get to the process of thinking that it's better to split ways, the way that you want to approach it is getting the sense of what each of the individual partners think. If the person that first brought them in is kind of also feeling the same thing, then it's probably easy to lean on them a little bit and figure out the best way to then discuss that with the second party. If the person that was brought in is feeling this way and almost feeling like they want to quit, but now they're being kind of dragged along by the person who lured them in, lured is not the correct term, but I think you get what I mean. Then you can have that knowledge discussing it with that initial person and trying to help bring them around to understanding that their partner just isn't interested in this, and that's totally fine as well. I think the end point of this whole thing, which again I think we kind of had the same answer but different flavors, just make sure that your intentions and your emotions are clear. Like, this isn't out of anger, this isn't like some sort of slight or a negative statement against whoever got involved. It's just that sometimes people don't mesh with the group, and that's fine, because D&D has a huge spectrum of how it's played, and not every single person is going to fit into every single group.
The two things I would stress before we move on are, first, conflict is not a dirty word. And I have struggled with this my whole life personally, so I get it. I mean, I understand conflict avoidance, but it is inevitable, and it doesn't automatically mean like some kind of crazy screaming match. It just means two parties being at cross purposes. That's it. So try to get comfortable with the idea, because at some point, whether it's your player bringing their partner or something else, something's going to happen. So you've got to prepare yourself to meet that challenge. But the other thing I would say is go into it with eyes open, but try not to be prejudicial. Like, I know that this is one of those situations that's a running gag in tabletop at this point, is somebody bringing their girlfriend. Ugh. But honestly, like I was playing a game that was heavy on the RP. It was, fire every week. It was going great. Guy brings his girlfriend, and she's actually great. Like, she's enthusiastic. She wants to understand, how to play. She's jumping right into RP with both feet. Like, she was a better player than he was. And when he got mad and left and took her with him, we were all like, "Aw, can she still come? Because she's actually really good." So don't be too quick to judge.
But I think that's all we got for that. It wraps it up pretty well. So do you have a scenario, James?
In your hypothetical imaginary game, you have a player who is bringing a new character, who has amnesia, whose parents have been murdered, who has claws on his hands for weapons. Also, he's a dark elf.
Okay.
And he's very excited about bringing this character.
Mm-hmm.
He as a player is fine, no major red flags. He doesn't he doesn't cause problems in any other way, really.
Mm-hmm.
But this character that he's just fired up about, yeah, he's coming. He's bringing this guy to your table. What do you do?
I love how your setups are so much more precise than mine. Mine are these just like very broad open. You have a specific like race and class and situation. But so is the actual problem that I don't like this character?
Well, the problem is that he is bringing a cliche with a capital shay. And it's, an edgelord brooding, stereotypes on, 3 layers deep.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think the initial answer, which is kind of the bland answer, is I would be very open to it because I'd want to see how it actually played out practically in the game. I think it's a little bit shitty of a DM to presume that just because a character you're bringing is a certain way or leans itself towards a certain, I don't know, flavor, that it's immediately going to be a bad thing. Because, even though cliches are kind of weighted with all this bad stigma, I'm sure that there are plenty of people that can actually play them pretty well and add to the story in the game and all that. I think the actual answer that you're looking for is, let's assume that this cliche only ends up being that shallow surface level cliche that it is presenting itself to be. I always find it incredibly difficult for myself to ever suggest to a player that their character needs a change. The only time that I can kind of go about it without feeling guilty is if it really just does not fit with the theme or the setting that the rest of the group has agreed upon. And the reason that is easier for me is it's not just my opinion or my preference or my say. It is the group's kind of weight behind, like, I guess, a rule that we've already set in place. Like, if we're playing a heroic campaign where we're going out and saving the damsel in distress, if you're bringing a, murderous edgelord amnesia psychopath, then the solution to that problem is he's just not going to fit with the party, and then hopefully he can I don't know, adjust or redraft or bring somebody else. If there isn't that crutch to lean on either, where it is kind of all up to me and everyone's bringing these kind of absolutely insane characters that could be anybody, I think I would try to sit down and have a in-depth conversation with this player and get to the source of why he wants to bring this character. And obviously I can't make that assumption with this being a not real situation, but at least if I got that understanding, then it would assist me in making suggestions or recommendations on how to tweak or modify what he wants to bring into something that I can work with. Even if at the end of the day, the end result isn't something I'm enthusiastic about, I would want to get it from something I'm terrified of to something that I can deal with, and then I guess move forward from there. So yeah, I guess that's more or less my answer, kind of going through the stages of how bad it could potentially be.
I like that. I think that's a good answer. The only thing that I would add for my part, if it were me in the situation, is you don't want to take the wind out of the guy's sails. Like if he really is excited about playing this character, and that lends itself to your conversation that you mentioned of why finding out why he's excited, which will definitely help. And I also think we can have a flashback here to our video we recorded recently about stealing plots and plot devices. Go to those sources that these cliches have come from. The reason they're a cliche is because people have done them a lot, and the reason they've done them a lot is because there's something fun in there. So look for the things that you can do as the DM to lay the groundwork for this character to be fun, as well as to find ways to make it more interesting, to put some kind of spin on it, or to throw something interesting in front of this cliche character that will be interesting to play and to see unfold. So, yeah.
I think worst case scenario, if you do all these various things and you still find that this player is just dead set on bringing this unshifting, unchanging archetype, I would almost see that as a pretty large red flag of he might not ultimately even end up being a decent player if they are that rigid about what they want to bring. Like if there's no flex in their just like initial concept, D&D is not a game where a rigid pole lasts long. That shit's going to break real quick, and it's probably going to lead to problems. So not to, put the cart before the horse, but if you're finding an issue there at character creation that's that in your face, you might want to reconsider bringing that person in.
I wonder, there's probably a whole episode that we could do on this kind of subject. But personally, one place where I typically just draw a hard line, no getting past this, I'm not going to try to work with you, is on the stuff that's obviously goofy or that's obviously going to lead to a Monty Python death spiral of your game. And I'll generally include this, like this will be a session 0 like house rule thing that I'll tell the group about. Like, your character creation is your first opportunity to engage with my setting. So do not bring me Warrior McWarrior pants. All right? Put some thought into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to vary drastically considering like what type of game someone's stepping into. But if you're joining a game where the DM takes his setting pretty seriously, then you want to show the effort of personalizing your character to fit that setting, so they aren't just a cookie cutter that you can slap in basically any scenario and then run with it. So, yeah. But
all right, what have we skimmed off the scum pond of the internet?
Have you read it yet, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try and summarize it to the best of my ability, and then you can fill in any gaps that I may have. So, it's from the perspective of the Dungeon Master. He has a party of 3 that he was struggling to get through scenarios without them failing or TPKing, and so his solution at the time was adding in a warrior, kind of stereotypical knight in shining armor, to assist the party as a fourth DM NPC, which it sounds like he was kind of trying to avoid, but that's, I guess, the best term for it. After adventuring with this sidekick for quite some time, he tried various ways of trying to conclude their story with him because he wanted to remove them from the party because he was finding it, I guess, tedious to have him always constantly tagged along. But no matter what, the party just kind of refused to let him go. Whenever they would finish something with him or do something for him, and he would turn around and say, "All right, guys, that was fun. I'll see you around." They're like, "Nope, you're coming with us." So now he is at the point where he cannot break this NPC away from the party, and he's trying to find a solution to do so. Did you have an idea, or do you want me to throw in my 2 cents?
I've got an idea. First of all, don't squander it. If you find yourself in that situation, you've got an NPC that they care about. That is a big deal. That's great. You know, you've done a good job with that character. And I've got a weak spot for this anyway. I love sidekicks. I love NPC allies and buddies. I love that. I'm not even really sure why, but I really like having those characters around. I like having them involved. I'm probably the biggest fan of the sidekick rules that were quietly released and no one's ever talked about again. So I would say don't waste that. But I can understand that you don't want him in the party anymore. So Gandalf him. That's my top of head answer is something terrible or challenging happens that splits them up. The party does not have a choice. Maybe the NPC risks himself in some profound way in order to save them. You know, again, hopefully most everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Gandalf, you shall not pass.
Ah, you fools.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to kill him. Literally Gandalf him. Like he goes missing. They can't find a body. Or wherever he fell, they can't get to him to find out whether he survived. He's just missing in action. And that gives you the space that you need to let the party start to blossom and come into their own without leaning on this NPC. And then when it's good, you can bring him back in some shape or form. So that's my first answer. First answer, best answer. Obviously, there's a lot of ways you can play with that. There's a lot of twists that you can put on that. But if you're looking for the simplest and quickest solution, that it's dramatic, and you don't have to spend hours listening to the characters like making persuasion checks to try to keep him around or whatever the case is. You know, he left. Nothing anybody can do about it. We're moving on. Maybe we'll see him again.
I love your answer if you can play it out well. And I think that's where that advice might be difficult to apply to everybody. Because I think what this DM has kind of accurately figured out in his fear and in the posting that he put forward is he states that he doesn't want to just like kill him off or lock him away or showcase and almost kind of a meta hand reveal that he's done with this NPC and the party no longer have access to him. And so I'm assuming that his players already kind of know that he doesn't want this NPC sticking around forever. So they're going to kind of be wary of trying to break him off or kill him or, you know, have him fall into some black pit mysteriously and never return. They're going to see that as like the DM railroading them or forcing a situation or kind of using his power almost not maniacally, but without their input, I suppose.
Tyrannically.
Yeah. I think the softer version of this, which I think leaves everybody more approving of how it ended, is it does seem like they have a very deep interest in seeing this NPC complete his task to succeed, to, have a good life, which is incredible. I think you mentioned at the beginning, like, you don't want to squander that, because that's sometimes a really difficult thing to formulate in your party, to have an attachment to an NPC that firm. So I'm assuming that at some point in your campaign, maybe you don't have like a hub or like a home city or something of that nature, but there should be a location that you could figure out somewhere where the party kind of return to every now and then. I would find a reason for this NPC to have some mission or some purpose or some goal there. The one that I would pull out of my hat is, there's some old title that he has claimed to, but he can't quite, get it set in stone for XYZ reason. Party go along with him, find his claim, settle it, get it all sorted, and he now has it. But now he's tied to this location. He has to rebuild this house. He has to, resettle all these old debts, whatever it might be. He can't leave. He now has an obligation that he can't just wash his hands of. But the party is certainly going to get bored of kicking around whatever this place is and not pursuing whatever their actual goals are at that point. And I think that that's a better way of kind of softly showcasing as a DM that, like, this character story is over, but you can always come back and see him or check on his progress, or, have him come for, a short one shot kind of like bringing the band back together thing if absolutely necessary. And then the DM also has his, goal accomplished of removing this game piece from the board so that he can focus on the party as they are. So yeah, that would be my kind of step down solution, which isn't as dramatic and cool, which I'd love to pull off something that is, Gandalf level of this heroic NPC has been with him for so long, sacrificing himself to save the party, and then they spend 15 minutes trying to resurrect him with, the DM going, he's like really dead. I don't know if that's gonna work. But yeah, so I think that's more or less my answer.
Or even better, like, do some mystery and you try to resurrect him, but he's not dead. Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
Can't resurrect him though because he's not dead. He's just missing.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you could turn him into a quest giver.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, my friends, I have seen I've seen you come into your own and become capable. Here's how you can help me now. I need to stay here and do this. I need to work on this problem. I need you, if you're willing, to go to this foreign land and do whatever. So now the party is still involved with him. The NPC is still around, but maybe his position in the hierarchy has changed.
The last little suggestion I'll throw out there, and I kind of put this forward with a little bit of hesitation because it doesn't really solve the problem, is perhaps there's a fair bit of insight to be gained of analyzing why your party likes this character so much. Maybe the answer is as simple as they just spent personal time with him, so they feel like a connection with him. But maybe it is a certain trait or an attitude or an organization or an aesthetic that he has that the party just kind of naturally find themselves being inclined towards. And you can now use that to introduce other characters or NPCs or antagonists or, allies that they shift their interest to. And again, it doesn't really solve the problem because you're kind of just changing one light bulb out for the other. But maybe that's something that you're all right with because you're just tired of screwing the same light bulb in for 3 years in a row. But yeah, that's another little, benefit that you could pull from this.
I feel like we could sit here all night and keep coming up with ways to address this problem, but you get the point out there, I believe. So hopefully you've got something out of this that's making you think, and you will come away from this video doing the same thing. You'll think to yourself like, oh, what if this? And I bet you could do that. That is a big part of what this particular series is about for us. So, in any case, you know how it goes. The likes make the world go round. So, don't forget to do your part before you go.
I'm sure there is a viewer out there that has a better solution than the ones that we propose, so I would love to hear it down in the comments section. I would also implore you that we are going to be doing this from time to time whenever the inspiration strikes us. So if you have a problem or a problem that you had in the past that you would like us to toss the ball back and forth on and kind of mull over with our brilliant minds, go ahead and share that in the comment section below, and maybe we'll use it as a community post in our next edition in this kind of sub-series that we have going on.
I would legit love to play Dear Abby on here and try to solve somebody's problem. So, take your best shot.
Truly try and stump us, because we'll just come up with some bullshit reasoning of why our advice works, and you didn't imply it right.
So until next time,
Have a good one.